Okay, welcome super secret agent trainees to WhizGirls Academy. Today we have a master agent trainer, Venus Jenkins. Welcome, Venus. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Shireen, for this great opportunity. Looking forward to meeting some more agents.
Yeah, so she's going to tell us all about her journey in STEM and how she founded a company and the amazing things that she's doing. But first, she's going to tell us about her childhood. So tell us about your childhood.
My childhood, it actually started in India. I moved here when I was about 14 years old. But before that, I was this kid who was a mix of tomboy and girly. I had both sides. Like I would go through my mom's clothes and she would be yelling and screaming at me, like, why are you ruining my clothes? But then there would be times I loved nature. I loved playing in the dirt, running around, climbing trees. So that was sort of my childhood, and other few little things. I was quite competitive. Um, I am the middle child. I don't know. I feel like middle child all around the world relate to that. That there is something special about us. I'm sure the older and the younger feel the same way. But I was the middle child. I always related it to that older child got a lot of attention, younger got a lot of correction. The middle was sort of ignored, so we got away with a lot of stuff. So that was my childhood fun and. One thing I usually like to think about my childhood, along with just running around like a normal kid and or the school, being in school, my dad really instilled core values. To this day, I remember my dad would have us three kids. It'd be like, you sit here, one daughter on one side and the son on his shoulders. And every night he would tell us a story about scientists or warriors and justice versus injustice. And it started very early on. Like as a kid, I would hear those stories and that sort of built my core value system. So that was my childhood.
Wow. And did you have any like hobbies or passions as a child, and anything that kind of comes to now, like anything you kept with you till now?
Yes, I tell everybody I have a lot of passions. I love learning. The one thing I usually like to think about what I have sort of carried throughout my life from childhood to adolescent to now is once again going back to that core value system where call it arrogance, call it full of yourself. I absolutely believed, and to this day, I believe that I am on this planet to do big things. Like I said, some people be like, wow, that's kind of full of yourself. No, the big things is not negatively impacting, be it the environment or make tons of money. I do want to make a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But the big things in the sense of like, I want to go change entire education ecosystems of girls. I have two young daughters. Even when I was little, that strong core value of I'm a warrior, I'm gonna go protect and fight against injustice. So those are like I think about things at a very revolutionary scale level. So that is something I have noticed in myself even when I was young. I carried that feeling that I am going to make a difference. I am going to go do big things. Started small. And then the last thing, there's this nerdy side of me too, which is I loved math. I feel like math spoke universal language. You can't argue with math. You can work on theorems and stuff, you can, but I'm saying there is that universal truth, and that math foundation I carried throughout my life. And I actually wanted to be a NASA engineer for the longest time. Coming to this country, coming to America, that was my big dream, working for NASA. And I attended some of the competitions at JPL too, as a high school student. But going back to passions, it is that core belief, I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to do big things, and I love math, and that sort of has trailed throughout my life.
Wow. Okay. So a couple of things you touched on, like making a difference, which I think you definitely are with what you're doing now, and we'll get to that in a minute. But like just having those core values and kind of this instinctive knowing as a woman, because like, you know, as women, we have like very strong intuition, right? I call it sometimes spidey senses and Jedi powers because it's true, right? And you just have this strong feeling that you really want to do something to make a difference and you're doing it. But just going through that journey, I think in the process is really interesting. So we want to hear more. But curious, like, did you have a dream job when you were a little kid?
Oh, everybody's gonna laugh at me. I couldn't even spell the word scientist, and that was my dream job. I remember one of the teachers asked me this question too. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said I want to be a scientist. She's like, spell scientist. I couldn't spell scientist. So that was my dream job. And to some extent, the path to becoming a scientist is you go in one of these STEM fields and you become an engineer, or go in the more on the academic side or research side, R&D side. Then you also step in the world and learn some of the worldly matters. So I married my dream of a scientist and a businesswoman. So scientist is at like the engineering level, not all the way scientist, but engineer, and then married that to a businesswoman. So I would say I am 90% there of my dream job.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so let's back up a second. So how did you hear about scientist, and what kind of scientist did you want to be? Do you know exactly what that was, or was it just like a really cool thing that you thought, this is what I want to do?
I didn't know exactly what kind of scientist, but I knew I wanted to be in space. And this is like dating myself. It's early 90s. My dad in India, when we were little, there was this a van library that they would go to schools, and then they would have a book fair. And I remember my older sister, who also wanted to be a scientist. Yes, there's a running common theme here, family all following the same thing. We bought a book. It was Russian cosmonauts. We didn't have the American version of astronauts. And I remember as a little kid just looking at those pictures and cosmonauts floating in the space, and the rocket pictures and the various parts of the engines. So yeah, that's from that book. Just visually, I kind of knew that this is what I want to work on and where I want to be.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Very cool. Curious when you heard the word STEM, and did you have any mentors along the way in that journey?
That's a two-part question. The first one, STEM, I think really took hold around when I was doing my undergrad at UC Santa Barbara. I was doing chemical engineering, and I started noticing that STEM sort of became a core word for science-related matters or science-related topics. And that's when I talked about it. But I really got a deep look into it during my undergrad. I love oversubscribing myself with volunteer work and research and dance competition. But there was a summer camp that was focused on STEM. And I volunteered to be a teacher for chemistry and math for the high school students. And they gave me a little bit of a training of what the STEM curriculum looks like for high school students, and what I should cover. So that's how I actually got to really learn about STEM and STEM ecosystem. Question is a very near and dear to my heart, mentors. And I'm a strong believer of having a mentor throughout your life, and even having multiple mentors. My dad was my biggest mentor up until middle school. And then in high school, without even realizing and knowing the word mentor or a sponsor, there was one teacher who I would go to for advice, and that was my a calculus teacher, Mr. Pemberton. I remember this to this day, and he was the one who would tell me, okay, if you're thinking of going into aerospace engineering or chemical engineering, you should take these subjects, and he would sort of guide me. And you have high school guidance counselors as well; they can help you. But for me, I really clicked because Mr. Pemberton would provide the advice specific to my focus. And then throughout college, I had my thermodynamics professor and engineering mentor at Southern California Edison, which became my first and my longest job. I had a mentor, engineering mentor, who trained me for 8 years. To this day, I go back to him, and there are things that he has instilled in me I carry with me everywhere, as simple as ask for forgiveness than permission. And you guys will learn, if you have that sort of core belief in I'm going to go do things, then this statement really applies. And then the last one is my current mentor, who has helped me through ups and downs of running the company. So I feel very strongly that around the time students are in 6th to 7th grade, they should start seeking advice outside of their immediate family members to get a little bit of a diversity of thought.
That's a really good point. And you mentioned chemical engineering, and you started your journey at, you mentioned UC Santa Barbara. So tell us why you picked chemical engineering out of all the other things in the world.
I don't know. I have, what do I say? I have tolerance for pain. The school I went to didn't have aerospace engineering, and their chemical engineering program was chemical and nuclear. They later on eliminated nuclear. Chemical was the first program I could see a direct line of sight to NASA, be a fuel combustion engineer or work in that capacity. So that's why I selected chemical engineering. Didn't know much about it, just went in thinking, okay, I will find my way to NASA. If I do this, I can somewhat see a path there. So that's how I ended up selecting chemical.
That's very interesting. And then you ended up at Southern California Edison, which you mentioned a little bit. So tell us about that journey.
That's interesting. I'm talking about how I want to be a space engineer, aerospace engineer, but I ended up at a power utility company. After I graduated, I was interviewing for various roles. I came to realize chemical engineers 10, 15 years back, they did most of oil and gas work. Not so much of space. Space is going through resurgence now, but when I graduated, there were no opportunities in that field. So it was going to be between an oil and gas job or working for a nuclear power plant. And I have always liked learning, and nuclear power plant just piqued my curiosity even more. So I ended up as a power plant engineer at San Onofre Nuclear Power Plant, which is one of the plants owned by Edison, Southern California Edison. And I was back in school because at a nuclear power plant, you can't touch anything. You go through 2 years of more education, more schooling that's only focused on nuclear physics, which I loved. So that's how I ended up at Edison. And at Edison, I got many opportunities. Within like the first 2 years, I'm like, okay, what else can I play with? What can I improve? Where's the research area? How can I lower the dosage? I would volunteer. I'm like, I will go in the radioactive lab and tinker with radioactive water and see how we reduce the dosage for other people. Because I was always questioning and learning. So after nuclear power plant, I got to work in coal, natural gas, hydro, renewable, everything at Edison.
Wow, when you were saying that, I was like, she sounds like a Marvel character in one of the labs. Like, that's pretty cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I now look at it as like some of the opportunities I got early in my career, like working at a nuclear power plant, working on a reactor. I don't think those opportunities exist anymore. Those come in far and few between, and I definitely count as those are shaping opportunities. As an adult, it shaped me in certain ways that has helped me in my future endeavors.
Very, very cool. Okay, so you then decided to go to MIT and get an MBA. So tell us about that and how that came about.
There's a long story, but I'll go over the cliff notes. Um, there's a running theme here of me uh, always either looking for opportunities to improve on the existing processes, existing research, and or is there new things to discover? And so I would constantly be pitching ideas to our executives. I'm like, look, we could improve our operational costs by this if we use this system for water, or desalination plant. I don't know, maybe they got tired of me pitching ideas. They're like, okay, take your angst and go build a company, a subsidiary with a bunch of other folks at Edison. That was my first experience, truly my first experience outside of engineering world in the business world. And so I was in some decision makers rooms, boardrooms, and I noticed how the deals get done. And I also identified a couple of gaps in my knowledge, in my learnings, which was on the business side, how to structure deals, what deal origination means, the finances, top line, bottom line, revenues, etc. I couldn't speak that language. I knew I was proficient in any engineering related matters, but not so much in business related matters. But being an engineer, I still wanted to go to an engineering school for business school. So tried really hard. Took me a couple of times, but I got accepted in MIT. So flew to Boston every other week and got MBA, and that was the catalyst that I needed, my original goal in life.
Wow, you said flew to Boston every other week from LA for 2 years, right?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's dedication and like all the things. That's amazing. Um, okay, so in between, you've been like speaking and mentoring and done a ton of volunteer work. But so tell us about your experience at MIT and then also like when you decided to actually start the company and ChargeNet Station. And we want to hear a little bit more about that as well.
Well, the first half of my MIT experience, I was quite confident that I'm going to stay with Edison and go build big things at Edison. But the second half is when I realized that my core was shifting. What I mean by that is Edison is a massive company. It's an amazing company for trying many different things. You want to try renewable power, you want to try non-renewable, you want to look at massive infrastructure, grid infrastructure, go work on logistics. Pick whatever field you want to pick, you will have an opportunity to work at Edison. At the end of the day, though, for me, I realized what I was looking for at Edison, um, it's not offered at a big company. Their core is keeping the lights on. And that's what the company stands for. And that's noble. And thank God we have a reliable utility that does that. My core, on the other hand, is I want to go build things that are making material impact in low income disadvantaged communities. that once again, that justice and justice come back. How do I fight against injustice? So the second half of my time at MIT started shaping my uh, core, and I once, as I was close to the end of my program at MIT, I actually sat down and wrote a manifesto, because I'm like, okay, this is the big life change I'm going to make. What do I want to do? What are my guiding principles? I wrote 5 things down. 3 of them were truly core beliefs of that I don't want to work on another app or things that are not making material differences. I want to build infrastructure that is going to move the needle on the carbon offset. I want to build things that have a direct impact on low income disadvantaged communities. Uh, I want to see how I want to build a company that looks like California. Their board room looks like it represents the population of California, which is quite diverse. Women, gender diversity, um, ethnicity diversity. So that was my 3 guiding principles, and the other 2 were kind of superficial. Like, I want to live in California, and things that somewhat matter to me. But that's what MIT did. It was the catalyst that I needed. It gave me the framework. It allowed me to put my thoughts on a piece of paper and then go build it, go do it.
Wow, that's awesome. And was it like you did something for a class, like a project that led to like, we're going to focus on like charging? Or was it something that you found like this is a big need? I know Lacey is a big part of all of this stuff in LA, and there's like interesting things happening there. So tell us about that whole experience.
So it was it was an experience of like-minded folks coming together. At Edison, I had already started seeing the energy transition, and you will hear that energy transition quite a bit in news cycle. What that really means is we're looking at a lot more solar, we're looking at energy storage, a lot of distributed generation that wasn't there before. It was a monopoly of utilities. EVs, the electric vehicles adoption rate started to pick up. So that was another thing. There were early data points that I had, which gave me the guidance, showed me the path, which direction I should head in. So I started putting my business proposal together for cars, which are called light duty vehicles. And in parallel, there were 2 other folks who were also working on a similar thing. So 3 of us got connected. I had some early investors from my class from MIT, and then they brought in some early investors as well. The 3 of us got together and said, this is our thesis of we're going to build EV charging infrastructure and provide white glove service in the communities that are always overlooked or left behind whenever large transitions happen throughout the history. In this case, these are low income and disadvantaged communities, because where we are building infrastructure is at fast food restaurants, and those are disproportionately in disadvantaged communities. So we put our thesis together. We had some early investors. All 3 of us brought investors in. Actually, Lacey invested. We got accepted into Lacey's incubator. And then we raised multiple rounds of funding. And we are here today, 3 years later, building close to 100 sites.
That's phenomenal. Congratulations. I know I was reading something about you're mostly in a lot of Taco Bells. Is that right? Like, tell us how you picked Taco Bell out of all the other places, potentially.
I applaud our first customer. Once you get your first customer, others will follow the suit. It was a franchisee owner of Taco Bell, who have always taken risks. who have taken in new ideas, be it on the software side, hardware side, real estate side. And we built quite an attractive business proposal for them with the state policies, incentives, federal incentives. Um, and it happened to be that they wanted to try it out at Taco Bell's. They also own Arby's and some other brand names. But Taco Bell was the first flagship store. We built our first charging stations. So that's how we ended up at Taco Bell. Right now in our portfolio, we have Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, Popeyes, pretty much all the big brand names we have in our portfolio.
That's very, very cool. Wow. And you said it's been 3 years. So how has that experience been so far? And like curious to hear like what you have in store for the future. And I'm sure our super secret agents will want to follow you. So we'll talk about that and how they can do that in the end. But
yep. Founder life, CEO life is exciting for the first 6 months. I want to be very realistic here and truly share my experience. And I used to think it was quite unique to me. I'm like, why me? Why? There's so many challenges. It's never ending. But the reality is now I'm in a group of some other founders through Lacey and our local founders. We all pretty much have the same journey. You have your North Star, you have a product, and you have your pilot, that you have your first customer. All of that lines up, but around 6 to 8 months, you hit this burnout period where it's a small team. When you start a company, you have this idea, and the idea is usually technical idea, or at least in my field, it's mostly quite engineering driven and technical. But to build a company, there's so much other peripheral stuff you also have to take care of, like accounting and financing and investors and reporting and HR. And you don't have
hiring people. That's a big one too. Yeah. I know everything you're talking about. A different industry, but exactly the same issues. Yeah.
So watch out for that burnout time when you are. Please do take some time off, and always keep your North Star in mind. I have a very simple North Star. I would consider us a success once I see a couple of our sites in the highest polluted areas in California, which is the 710 corridor. When we have sites in those low-income communities, I would consider ChargeNet is officially a successful company because it's met its goal. We're not there yet. So that's my North Star. And that's pretty much what it takes sometimes to get out of the bed. Look, I am solving a problem here.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I think that's what I call it, being on the tech yellow brick road, because that's my journey, right? So everyone has their own yellow brick road. And I think the North Star is great for our super secret agents to learn about, because that's what keeps you going, right? When the going gets tough and things kind of keep, going back and forth, and you're like, why is this happening? Like, I just want to make this happen. Why is it not happening? Like, what do I need to do to make this happen? And it just keeps like the walls and everything. I know. Feeling, unfortunately, that's, how entrepreneurs roll. But I keep going back to, well, if it took Elon Musk 18 years for those spaceships to blow up in his face, and he finally kept going and going and going for 18 years, even though that kept happening, like, then if he can do it, then we can do it too. And our super secret agents can do it too.
Absolutely. Don't give up. It's easier said than done, but I tell you, develop that strong core and you will get through it. It is not easy. It is going to be tough, but you will get through it, and get people in your corner, your mentor, your sponsor, where you could be vulnerable and share some of the hardships with them.
Yeah, and I think that's important. You said like community and your team and the people on your side, because when the going gets tough, you need to, fall back on them and kind of like figure out what you want to do next and get advice and, get people to be kind of giving you what directions. But you have a very strong vision, and it's very hard for some people to see that. And some of them might be like, well, I don't know if you should be doing this way or whatever, but you go back to your North Star and you're like, no, but this is my vision, right? And you might be way ahead of the game, which it sounds like you are, and most entrepreneurs are, and everyone needs to catch up with that. So that's huge. It's like sticking to your guns, literally.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know how many times you're going to hear investors, I just don't see it. And you're going to be like, let me show it to you. And the thing is, it's one example I will share. Sorry, like I'm switching my hats from a learner to building something new that hasn't existed before. I get this question quite a bit. Well, what are your projections, or how can you be so certain about certain numbers? And I have to say, I am not certain. This hasn't been done before. There is no historical data. I cannot build a forecast when this hasn't been done before.
Right.
So it is hard for some folks to internalize that message because you're building it as you go. And for them, they haven't seen anything like this before. So what do they compare to? What are the comps here? But like Shireen said, stick to your guns. You believe in it. You have thesis, which will get adjusted as you're building. But once you have your early evidence of the proof of your thesis, just keep on going. There will be a lot of naysayers that will say, show me, prove it to me, who has done it before. If somebody else is doing it, then why are you talking to me?
Right. And I think that's part of the innovator's dilemma, right? It's like being first to the ball game, literally, but then people don't understand around you. And then all of a sudden it's like domino effect. Everybody wants to do that. And like, it's who's first to the game now. And like, but you're like, no, I have conviction. I believe in this. This is happening. Like, it's just happening on the timing and just kind of letting go and letting it kind of come and flow, which I think is huge. It's an interesting balance of the two things. Okay, so what did you learn when you were 11 years old that you have kept with you today?
I actually had to convert that into what grade I was in when I was 11 years old, and I had to think really hard through it. The only thing I could remember vaguely is that and I may be mixing up the timeline, but I don't know if it was 6th or 7th grade. But I remember going to a place in Himalayas, which are the largest, tallest mountains in the world. Going to a temple in Himalayas. And my parents, it was like a family thing. We all went there. And I'm sitting there as 11 or 12-year-old and asking my dad, am I a good person or am I a bad person if I don't believe in this religious temple? And then my next question, my dad is like, where is that coming from? And then my next question, before he could even answer, I'm like, well, what's beyond Earth? The planets. And I'm like, what's beyond solar system? He's like, stars. I'm like, what's beyond this universe? And he couldn't answer. So I'm like, then how do you know God exists? This was like such a spiritual, philosophical conversation I had with my dad at a very young age, because I was questioning religion at that point. And the thing is, my key takeaway from that conversation wasn't that I don't believe in our religion or I wasn't spiritual. My key takeaway from that conversation was that I can question things that have been just accepted as is by our society. And that sort of questioning attitude I took along with me growing up, questioning why certain things are a certain way. Why can't this be built that way? What kind of operational efficiencies we would get if we tweak the system this way? Why hasn't this question been asked? Okay, this policy was passed 50 years ago. Why are we still operating that way? My whole point is that is like a key memory I remember around that age that I've sort of carried with me throughout my life.
Wow. And that's huge. I think at that age, questioning a lot of things. I think there's our secret agents question things, and you get thrown into from like middle school to high school to college, all the different things, and you're questioning things along the way. But that's huge. I think you had an awakening probably back then, and which is probably continued on into like all of these other things that you're doing, which is phenomenal. Okay, I'm going to switch to some student questions and then we'll switch back. Okay, this is a question and a comment. You are a real life superhero and a role model. Thank you. Have you had someone who inspired you along your STEM journey, and how did their encouragement help you become even more awesome?
Oh, that's such a sweet question. Thank you. My superhero is my dad. My dad raised me like a boy in Indian culture where boys were valued more, but as a girl, as a woman, I don't even remember as early as I don't even remember how old I was, but my dad is my superhero in the sense that he gave me the superpower of don't be afraid of math. Math is easy. Just put your headset on, music on, and just go live in the world of math. And it gives you a strong foundation if you are planning to be in a STEM career or a STEM degree. And so I look at my dad as my superhero, and he gave me the superpower of math is easy, and it is easy.
That's phenomenal, because I don't know, at some point Barbie said math was hard, and I wasn't there at the time, thank God, but like I don't know what happened. So that's really encouraging to know that that really changed your trajectory.
I'll add a little bit to that. My daughter last night, we were going through multiplication, which think about math is so fascinating. How did they even come up with these concepts or logic? And she was almost in tears. And I had to change that mindset. I'm like, let's put some tunes on. Let's have a jam session. I'm going to make a little musical session out of this and make it fun. I'm like, this is not hard. It really isn't hard. Once you know the trick in the math, it applies universally. You could go to China and India or England or US. 20 times 10 is going to be 200. And once she got that, she's like, yeah. And then we had a fun household yesterday doing math all night. At least for a couple hours, we were all doing math.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Making it fun and engaging and interactive and like a fun experience that they want to come back to more and more versus like, we're going to learn. That's not fun, right? Nobody wants to go through that, unfortunately, but it's a thing. Okay, so next question from the students. You're currently a female STEM superstar for the Project Scientist Academy. That is so cool. Can you tell us what inspired you to be one and your experience with that?
Project Scientist, I was a volunteer and a speaker a long time ago. It was a middle school girls camp during summer, and I was invited to speak at that event. And it's as a woman with two daughters, I feel so strongly about sharing some of my experiences, even if they're not relatable. I want to speak to them to say, look, I don't think that the narrative we have been fed for so long is true. Women, females can be equally, or if not more, successful in STEM as well. And we're not wired differently that we somehow can't learn as fast as men. Not that it's a knock on men or anything. It's just I don't want STEM to be a huge, fearful area. And that's when I was invited to speak at Project Scientist, I shared some of my personal experiences with them. And that was a great opportunity. Afterwards, I spoke to some of the middle school girls one-on-one and learn from them too. It's a two-way streak. I am learning what the current challenges are. So that was my volunteering event at Project Scientist.
Okay, awesome. What superpowers do you find you have that have pushed you to where you are today?
This I actually shared with my team too. There are two. One I've already shared with you. Questioning things the way they are. Um, Accepting status quo is not in my DNA. And this has come from when I shared examples very early on. Um, and I think I've also shared the second power, but it's cloaked in a way, the way I like to frame it and the way I share it with my team as well, is I can learn anything. You can learn anything. Um, and I'm like a slightly above average student. I'm not like the smartest person. I'm also not the bottom half. I'm like tiny bit above average. Where I'm going with this is like once I set my mind to learning something, I learn it. Like be it rocket science, be it business, finance, whatever it is, once it has piqued my interest that this is a gap in my knowledge, I am curious to learn this, I will master it. An example is my dad taught me chess when I was in fourth grade, I believe. Um, and we kept on playing chess. And my goal was that I am not as good as my dad. And I need to get to the point where I'm as good as my dad. And once I beat my dad and my brother, I'm like, okay, I accomplished my goal. I learned chess. Not that I mastered chess, but I learned chess. But I set my mind to it so I can, and I think anybody can do it. Once you set your mind to it, you can learn anything. Nothing is hard enough.
Yeah, that's wild. I feel like you can do anything you set your mind to. That's the song from Eminem. And like that was literally playing when I was going to my informational interview at Mattel. And that's been in my head always. So every time you say that, I'm like, there's my song again. Like, here it comes. Like, that's literally, it's so true. You can definitely do anything you set your mind to. And I think the fact that you did that with music with your daughter last night, I think music is a powerful tool that you can use to help. But really, it's like just a mindset. And I think that's huge. And I think that's what our super secret agents will take away from this is like, really, when you set your mind to something and there's no excuses, there's no victimhood, there's no, you're bullied, whatever, whoever says anything, who cares? It's all about what you want to do.
Once
And
you
that's,
set your
yeah,
mind to it, yep.
yeah. And I think listening to that song helps too.
Oh yeah, music is that. There are times when I just put this music on and I'm like, that's my jam session. That's my working session. That gets me through hundreds of emails. I just block that time on the calendar. And that's how I used to do calculus, multivariable calculus, statistics. It's like
Wow.
math and music goes really well. Physics and math, English literature and music may not. I mean, people are free to disagree with me, but math is the only one for me. Math and work with music, it just flows.
Very cool. Okay, one more question from the students. You are the president of NextGen and the board member of at the Continuous Improvement Board. How have these experiences supported your career?
Oh, I loved NextGen. I was one of the founding members of NextGen, which was an employee resource group, an ERG at Edison. I looked at it as I forget our line, was our tagline was, but it was basically looking into theoretical space right on the verge of becoming practical. So we would look at technologies. Are they scalable? Can large companies adopt these technologies? That's where sort of the inspiration I got about starting ChargeNet stations, because I had the opportunity to bring in speakers, some newer emerging technologies all around the industry. We would put together this huge event, and I would have a team, a logistics team. We would have over 400 to 600 attendees, all different kinds of concept cars coming in, EV chargers. So next gen, it was just looking into technology that was in the theoretical space, just on the verge of becoming practical. So I love my time there. And that was my brainchild as well. Like I said, at Edison, I couldn't sit still. I was like, okay, what else can I build? Like, let me do more research. Let's centralize research. Let's start a company. And they kept on giving me the opportunity. So I'm very thankful to Edison.
That's awesome that they were fostering it, because some companies aren't very open to it, but that's awesome. Very, very cool. Okay. Looking into the future is exciting. What do you imagine for girls in STEM down the road? And how can we make sure that everyone gets a chance to be part of the STEM adventure?
I do believe that the STEM adventure and STEM acceptance has to start at a very early age. And when I say early age, it's as early as elementary school. And the exposure, similar to this podcast, this event, that exposure will help sort of create equal opportunities for both sexes. And that's where I would like to think that at some point in the future, which is, I want to say 20 years, in 20 years, we will not have this dichotomy of STEM for women or STEM for girls and STEM for boys. It would just be any gender interested in STEM. I mean, that's everybody's hope, that 20 years never come around, that just around the corner. So how do we foster it? It really has to start at a very young age. It has to start at elementary school, where the teachers foster it, the parents, the community, the opportunities like this, the exposure like this needs to take place at a very young, early age.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I was thinking about like me growing up in LA, and I went to LUSD public school down the street from UCLA, and I had a female computer science teacher that taught me how to code Fortran back in the day, third grade, right? And so exactly what you said, I had that. She never pointed a finger and said, "You're a girl." We did it all together. I was on an Apple IIc green screen, coded Fortran every day, and played Carmen Sandiego. And if I didn't watch the movie Big, I probably would have stuck to that, because that was like my jam. And at home, I had Atari and Nintendo. Like, I was always very obsessed with technology. But it's interesting, because we went somehow backwards, and now we have to go forward again to, like, I don't know, somehow something went haywire.
Yeah, I look at it as the community, teachers, parents, everybody has to sort of foster that environment, create those opportunities. I know that if there is an opportunity to speak at my daughter's school, as busy as I am, I make sure I am there. And I bring gadgets and I bring swag. I want to make it fun. I want to make it exciting. I want to talk about electricity, how it could be super cool, how it could hurt you, how cool it looks. So once again, I want to be part of the solution. And as little or as much as I can support it, I try to.
That's awesome. Okay, what advice would you give overall to our aspiring secret agent trainees in the audience?
This may be a repeat, but I do want to highlight these two things. Math. Learn math, get comfortable with math. If you're going to be in STEM or even not in STEM, it doesn't have to be. Math is the universal language. It's fun. I am not downplaying it. If you want to go in physics, chemistry, neuroscience, whatever field you're looking at, you're going to have to learn statistics. You're going to have to learn calculus. This is the universal language. But it's fun. It is fun. Learn it. Make it your friend. The second one is more practical advice from career perspective, which I've already shared with you too. Around 6th or 7th grade, start looking for mentors or sponsors, somebody that you look up to. Maybe start getting advice around that age.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And how can our special secret agent trainees follow your journey moving forward? Is it LinkedIn, Instagram, your website? What's the best way?
A combination of those. Our company website, on LinkedIn. I think we are also on Instagram, and we have our website. I'm a little bit social media averse, just because I have strong opinions on data utilization and data mining. But from company perspective, and my progress through the company, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and our website.
And we'll add that to the show notes for ChargeNet Station. So all of those, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the things, your website, for sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to switch to key takeaways in a minute. But first, we're going to do the 60-second fun answers. So favorite toy growing up?
It was my kitchen set. They were just, kitchen set.
Very cool. Favorite video game?
I wasn't that much into video games. I was so basic in that sense. I think I only played Tetris. I'm dating myself, but that's all I played. I wasn't that much into video games.
Oh my God, Tetris was so good. Have you seen the movie on Apple?
No, but I saw recently a video that there is an actual Tetris competition where
Wow.
I'm like, you would be sitting there for hours, who scores the most. But yes, it's come back full circle now.
Yeah, it has. But you should watch it. It's really good. And then there's also a new show on Apple TV. I feel like I'm promoting Apple TV today. Called Lessons in Chemistry, which with Brie Larson. That's based on a book. It's really, really good. It's all about science, and I think you'll get a kick out of it, especially since you said you had a kitchen set as a child. Yeah, it's wild. Okay. Favorite superhero?
That's a tough one, because I have a lot of favorite superheroes. The one a lot of people may not know or have heard of is Guru Gobind Singh Ji, which is the 10th guru in Sikh religion. And he sacrificed a lot, and he really fought against injustice with a small army. If you go Google him, you'll see that he accomplished a lot at a very young age.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. We'll have to Google him. Okay, so favorite sci-fi, and it could be Star Wars, Star Trek, or both, or something even that we've never heard of.
Sci-fi, I recently was saying that anything Christopher Nolan touches, like Interstellar, Inception, any of those movies, I just Tenet. I'm still trying to figure out Tenet. I have to rewatch it, but that would be when it comes to sci-fi. I think of those movies. I'm more attracted to those.
Very cool. Yeah. Interstellar was insane, and Inception as well. Both. Yeah.
Mind-bending movies. I love mind-bending movies. Sci-fi, another one, Altered Carbon, but it's like PG-18 mature audience.
Yeah. I was gonna get to what you're watching now. So yeah.
Now is I just watched Altered Carbon season 1, and I'm watching Super Pumped Story of Uber, which I relate to a lot. Starting a company and running a company and running into your societal and regulatory challenges.
Interesting. I haven't seen that one, but I did see We Crashed, and I heard the BlackBerry one is really good. I did watch The Inventor. That's also Apple TV, We Crashed, and that's WeWork, Adam Newman.
Yes, I know.
Very interesting. I did watch The Inventor, which is a documentary about Elizabeth Holmes. I didn't watch The Dropout, which was a little too much, but The Inventor was fascinating as well. Let's see what else. Favorite animated series, if you had one as a kid?
Favorite, yes, I did. Which one was it that I used to really like? I mean, there are the traditional ones that we watched, Simpsons, American Dad, and many more. But I'm trying to think if there is one that I was like, oh, this is a greatly scripted show. I can't think of one right now. But it would be, growing up, probably Simpsons, because it was just benign fun.
Yeah, and it's wild that it's been going strong for so many years. It's
Yes.
wild. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do key takeaways, and please let us know if we missed anything. Own up to your values. Be comfortable with asking for permission and asking for forgiveness. Start seeking for advice from those around you. Look for new opportunities. Find new things to discover. Your journey won't be easy and will be tough, but you shouldn't give up. Develop your core strengths. It's okay to question things. Don't be afraid of trying out the unfamiliar. Be eager to do more. And I want to add math, because math is huge.
Yeah.
And obviously seek out mentors, because that's a huge one. But if we miss anything, please let us know.
No, this covers it all. I think once again, thank you for the opportunity. And I hope if there is one student if I could even influence one student's mindset into that STEM is great, math is great, I have accomplished my goal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And our super secret agents, I think, will be really floored to listen to this conversation. And I feel like their parents and also teachers and everyone else that might be having a midlife crisis and not sure what to do next will get a kick out of this one. Thank you for joining us, Venus Jenkins from ChargeNet Stations, the founder. And we'll be back again tomorrow with WhizGirls Academy. Thank you, super secret agents. Bye for now.
Bye.